This video is brought to you by Surfshark. You wouldn't expect RC cars to be the starting point for the career of one of the greatest drivers of all time, but for Sir Lewis Hamilton, that's exactly where it started. At least, from a competitive standpoint it was. In terms of where it really began, it was whilst on a family holiday when Lewis was introduced to a local kiddie kart track. The circuit itself was barely 60 meters long, but that was enough to give Lewis the racing bug. I mean, maybe he was only 3 years old at the time, but in terms of competitive stuff, we end up back with him remote control cars. After receiving an RC car for his 5th birthday, it set the wheels in motion, and it got to a point where Father Anthony decided,
okay, yeah, let's get you into some serious comp here.
And so after joining a local club in Stevenage, Lewis began competing in competitions with a degree of success. And after a successful year in '92, Lewis and his pops went to Rye House to try out some go-karts. I mean, hey, treating yourself is all important, so this was obviously the way to go. Issue for Anthony is that Lewis was hooked on this shit. He loved karting, he wanted more of it. And on Christmas, he got his wish when Santa Claus gave him a present in the form of his first go-kart. He was about to transition out of RC racing and onto the karting scene. Good thing karting is cheap.
Something is wrong with you!
And so, beginning his career at Rye House the next year, Lewis was immediately on the pace. After a couple years of learning the ropes, growing, and honing his craft, he won the British Cadet Championship in '95. It was during that year as well, where Lewis attended the Autosport Awards dinner in London. His father Anthony realised the importance of being in a room full of motor racing hierarchy and legends and so forth, and so gave Lewis an autograph book with spaces for contact deets, and effectively told Lewis to get as many as he could. Eventually, they scoped out Ron Dennis, head of the McLaren Formula 1 team.
When I met Ron Dennis, I asked for his autograph in my autograph book. I asked for him to put his address down and his phone number, and he wrote in the autograph book, phone me in 9 years and we'll sort something out then.
And that was important. I mean, now it's infinitely worse, but money has always been a problem in motorsport, especially if you're like the Hamiltons and you're not exactly rolling in money. Anthony was working multiple jobs just to make any of this a possibility. Contacts and sponsorship are vital toward making any motor racing venture happen, as well as putting food on the table, which is why this video was sponsored by Surfshark. Yeah, this may sound like a typical blurb, but you know as well as I that our internet reliance has been rapidly increasing. From streaming our favorite shows, to keeping in touch with our loved ones, thank you very much lockdown, and even our banking is pretty much mainly done online nowadays. We'd like to think that our information is safe, but as our online footprint increases, so does the need for proper security. Surfshark is a VPN service that protects your information by encrypting all the data that you send through the internet, keeping prying eyes from seeing it. Seriously, you really want what you've been browsing to be exposed? And now I've just inflamed people's paranoia, so here's a video of a hippo running to break the ice. No, it's like watching Flavio Briatore chase an ice cream truck. Another reason to use VPN is because content from streaming services can sometimes be restricted based on what country you're in. With Surfshark, you can solve that problem by simply changing your location. Not only is this good for people who want to keep up with their favorite shows, but it can also be a critical tool for those who live in countries that like to heavily censor people. So Surfshark has thrown you all a bone here. By using my link in the description and using the promo code JoshRebel, you can get Surfshark VPN for 83% off and 3 extra months for free, which means for like a couple bucks a month, you are fully protected. Plus, you'll get them free 3 months. Surfshark offers a 30-day money-back guarantee as well, so if you don't like it, you can simply cancel your subscription and get your money back and spend it on something else. Probably couldn't use it on much of anything in racing though. I mean, that is why Lewis approached Ron Dennis in the first place. The sport is beyond expensive, which is why when Dennis approached Lewis in 3 years with an offer of place within the McLaren camp, it was a huge deal. After a slew of accolades in the British karting scene, Lewis was signed on to the McLaren driver development program alongside Wesley Graves. And oh boy, those two had vastly different careers from that point on.
But we'll discuss Poundland Ron Weasley in another time.
Lewis also began racing on the European karting scene, and it was in this time that he would encounter none other than Nico Rosberg. And believe it or not, these two were legitimate best buddies. No lie. At the 1998 German Grand Prix, a plan was hatched to put Nico and Lewis in a karting team called Team MBM. Dennis told both of them about the plans and asked if they were going to coexist with each other in the same team. Their response, without hesitation, was yes. All of this sounds so alien nowadays given what happened in 14, 15 and 16, but then again, this was 1998, and this wasn't Formula 1. They weren't exactly fighting for the World Championship back then or anything. except they were. Lewis would win the World Karting Cup at Motegi in Japan, as well as the European Karting Championship in the year 2000. Curiously, he was never able to capture the World Karting Championship, but then again, Nico didn't win it either. I don't know why, but whatever the case, McLaren was still firmly in his corner, and by 2001, it was time for Lewis to enter the car racing scene, signing on to race with Manor in the Formula Renault UK Winter Series at the age of 16. He was the youngest driver to race in that series at the time. The grid was pretty strong, with drivers such as Rob Bell, Jamie Green, and World Karting champion Colin Brown taking to the grid. Overall, it wasn't an all-inspiring, amazing season for him. Then again, none of the expected champions to be ever got to be the champion, but it was a good learning stepping stone, whatever you call it, heading into his first full-on season in 2002. Despite obliterating his teammates, winning 3 races that season, and finishing P3 overall in his first season ahead of some pretty credible names, he was struggling off the track. Despite being just a whisker away from vice champion status, he had questions regarding his future. Was this all worth it? Could he actually make it work? Well, in 2003, he got his answer when, after a slow start by his reckoning, he absolutely blitzed the field. From Silverstone onwards, every race he finished, he won, and the field was still plenty strong this year as well. Things were looking pretty good for the kid from Stevenage, but then came time for him to step up to the Formula 3 Euro Series. Over there, he was going to be in amongst some big fish, and it would be a place where Manor wasn't the best team around. Not that it would stop him from winning a race at the Norris Ring, securing 4 podiums, and finishing P5 overall just behind best buddy Nico. But within the team, there was a little bit of unrest, and this became a problem with his main backers at McLaren, who wanted Lewis to remain with Manor for the next season, but he wanted none of it. He wanted to move on to another team that would give him a better shot at the title. The solution? He left McLaren. Walking away from that type of deal over something like that seemed tantamount to career suicide. At the Macau Grand Prix, still remaining with Manor, he managed to scrape a sponsorship deal together and put his car on the pole. But heading into Lisboa, race leader Nico Rosberg locked up his brakes and went straight on into the wall. Lewis, who was directly behind him, followed him into the barrier as a mark of respect. Although this meant, among other things, that he wouldn't win the race and absolutely ruined his chances of some commercial wowzers. And that sucked eggs because now, with 1 race left in his itinerary, Lewis was left without a McLaren contract, barely scraping a budget together, apparently, and now he's crashed out of the Macau Grand Prix whilst in a strong position. It's hard to recover your career from that shit. Obviously, he was dejected, but he was now headed to the Bahrain Super Prix, with a drive fully funded by Manor themselves out of the goodness of their hearts. And boy, did it pay off. Lewis came from the back of the field to take the win. An outstanding drive, and one that caught the attention of McLaren, who welcomed him back into the team with open arms. He would return to the Formula 3 Euro Series, still with the endeavour to be in the best team possible. Now, for some people, that may sound a little sus.
Oh, he only won because he's in the best team.
Time out, mate. Most drivers nowadays want to be in teams like Prema for a reason. Let's not be stupid about this. You want to give yourself the best opportunity possible because, like it or not, these spec series are anything but equal. But the point is, the best way to make yourself look like $1 million to Formula 1 bosses is to cross that finish line first. No point being stupid and putting yourself into a donkey team. That naive bravado will literally get you nowhere. So Lewis signed up with Signature alongside Adrian Sutil, and what followed was, well, the one word that could describe it was domination. Out of the 20 races that season, Lewis won 15 of them. He had won at every single circuit he raced at. Yeah, Signature had dominated that year with Sutil finishing 2nd overall with 2 wins under his belt. But there is no denying just how damn well Lewis drove that year. He also won the Masters of Formula 3 at Zandvoort, in a time before it became a permanent place of worship for Max Verstappen. It pretty much went about as well as it could get that year. What it also meant was that he would graduate to GP2 for 2006, driving with ART. He was now just one step below Formula 1. His absolute dream. He can actually do this. That year he would be teamed up with Alexandre Primar, who was a damn good driver in his own right. And Goldilocks would back that up by finishing P3 overall in the standings, ahead of Timo Glock. Go on. Cue the meme. I'm so sick and tired of that goddamn tired ass meme. But despite ART having won the previous year's championship with Nico Rosberg, a lot of the attention was put upon Nelson Piquet Jr. And before the season, he looked set to be on the path to Formula 1, where he would actually get to.
And be primarily remembered for one thing.
And with 4 wins that year, which included a barnstorming run from Hungary to Istanbul, he pushed heavily for that title. But he wouldn't win it because instead, it was the boy from Stevenage who put on some momentous performances, which entailed a clean sweep at the Nürburgring and Silverstone, Silverstone, as well as winning on the streets of Monaco to help him win the title. It was a fantastic season all round, but the race that season that stuck out the most was the feature race at Istanbul. After starting P7, he was settling in for an interesting race, as at that point, championship rival Piquet was just ahead of him on track. He didn't make life easy for himself when he spun off on lap 2, flick spinning into the path of unsuspecting pay drivers whose reactions vary wildly based on their mood, and rejoined the race back down in P19, right down the rear of the grid in a 23 lap race. That was pretty much race over for him in terms of a win or a podium. Like, maybe he can salvage some points with some determination. Either way, he needed to try something, because at that point, Piquet was still there, and he was still in the hunt for the title. Well, by lap 9, he was into the points, unsettlingly quickly even for someone as rapid as he was. At this rate, he could charge through, overtake Piquet, take the lead from Zuber, lap the field, overthrow the Turkish government, declare a new world order. Frankly, this was astonishing. He would eventually finish in second place after some insanely good moves and racecraft which made the world stand up and take notice. This wasn't just a great drive by GP2 standards, this was a great drive full stop, and it highlighted exactly why his junior career was as impressive as it was. I mean, take a look at these stats here. In 5 full seasons of junior Formula racing, this is what he achieved. You could argue about those teams all you want, but there is a reason why I brought up that Istanbul drive. It didn't matter if he was in the best team or not, the skill was so blimmin' evident that it didn't warrant further explanation, and Ron Dennis thought this too. At the beginning of the year, Lewis himself reckoned that he might be ready for Formula 1 come 2007.
Boy beating his chest here.
Of course, the proposition of a new talent entering a top team like McLaren was pretty damn unlikely. It very rarely happens in this game, but when Kimi Raikkonen left for Ferrari and Juan Pablo Montoya left, the whole damn sport, it left 2 vacancies at the team after McLaren didn't have the guts to bring Pedro de la Rosa on board full time. One seat was filled by the Lord of the Eyebrows, and the other was filled by... yeah, well done, Dora the Explorer. The rest, as is so often said, was history. He is now a 7-time champion of the world. He is, statistically at least, the greatest there ever was. I mean, yeah, I maintain there is no GOAT, as each era varies way too much to draw a fair comparison. And the fact he's been in an OP car for years is frustrating to the average earthling as he sails off into the distance. But when all is said and done, it's extremely hard to argue against his greatness. He is that damn good. It's a greatness that is only really matched by Michael Jordan, or eating cereal at night. Love him or hate him, this dude is special. He's proven it in Formula 1. He proved it in the junior series that came before it, and he proved it back in karting. And it's kind of remarkable when you think about it, that this all really started through a hobby that he picked up as a 5-year-old. Funny how life works, eh? Anyways, thank you all for watching. Drop a comment below, subscribe to the channel if you're awesome, and always remember, keep it respectful, be wholesome, don't be a manus, and as always, I'll see you all later.